Hey there, it's Ron Gula from Gula Tech Adventures, and today we are going to talk about the rise of being a virtual Chief Information Security Officer. Now, if you're on your way as a careerist in cybersecurity or the data care industry, you might be thinking that the ultimate role you might have someday is Chief Information Security Officer at a major company, major university, that sort of thing. But recording this now in November of 2023, I think it's much more likely that your future as an experienced cybersecurity expert might be more as a virtual chief information security officer. So, why is that? Well, first of all, there's an increasing amount of liability being a chief information security officer. If you are a CISO for a public company, you've got a lot of potential liability. I can list off a few here. You have to participate in SEC disclosures. There might be a shareholder lawsuit. Your investors might sue you if you have bad cyber. Your customers, your consumers might actually sue you if you have bad cybersecurity. You could be non-compliant with the regulations in your industry, like HIPAA and PCI. You can even have criminal liability in some cases in some states, especially if you do something like perhaps cover up a breach to the SEC. You might even have employment practice liability if you don't protect your employees' data. And finally, if you're considered to be part of a corporate executive, you might be liable for directors and officer type of issues like D&O insurance. So that's just a public company. And private companies, you still have liability. You could have contract liability. Maybe your company tries to enter into a contract with another organization, and they actually, have some issues with how you do your cybersecurity. You can even have personal liability in some states. So there's a lot of liability. And some people just don't want to take that on. And even though most CISOs we think about are leadership positions, that type of thing. The reality is the CISO is not in charge of cybersecurity. They are in charge for bringing the cyber risk to those that run the business and organization. It's kind of a conversation. A CISO at a major bank can't simply say, "Oh, we're going to go from two-factor to three-factor overnight," right? There's a lot of work and collaboration with the rest of the organization that has to be done. And sometimes the funds aren't there to pay for the cyber things that we want to protect our business. And sometimes other people want to take different risks than the CISO does. That can put the CISO in a situation where they are not protecting as much as they want to protect, and it puts them in some jeopardy. So one of the things that could happen in this case, I've talked to a lot of CISOs who leave industry and they want to go into industry and be a virtual CISO. There's a good thing because there's not enough CISOs to go around for small business, and most likely small business can't afford a full-time CISO. And that's a good thing too. You don't really need somebody who's has the ability to do chief information security work for an organization of 100,000 people. If you're 1,000 people, you don't have as much politics, bureaucracy, or complex IT situations, but you still need that due care, and you need to have somebody come in do that. Now, not just because of the scarcity of being a chief information security officer, I actually think a virtual CISO is almost more like outside counsel where you hire a lawyer on retainer, and that lawyer gives you really, really good impartial legal advice. A virtual chief information security officer really can go work anywhere. So they really don't have anything to offer you except their best advice. And if you don't take it, they can simply move on to another organization. You also get a little bit more benefit than just being a CISO, maybe hiring them from a big bank or a large military organization. If they're doing virtual CISO work for multiple organizations in different verticals, they might get exposed to lots and lots of different technology problems and solutions for how to manage risk in cyberspace. One of the things I really like that CISOs do when they become virtual CISOs is they have a tighter relationship with vendors and venture capital people. If you're a founder and you're trying to reach a CISO in a major corporate environment, I always joke that CISOs have layers and layers of defenses, not against Chinese and Russian malware, but against vendors trying to sell them the latest cyber widget. But what happens when these CISOs leave, a lot of them will give me a call and just say, hey, what's going on in the industry? Who can I work with? A lot of these virtual CISOs also end up advising venture capital firms which is good, right? We don't want people investing in companies and products that aren't really needed. But they also get tighter relationships with vendors. Some virtual CISOs are actually CISOs and chief security officers and chief strategy officers. That S sometime changes a little bit in the title there for actual vendors, and they still do CISO work on the side, which is interesting. Some virtual CISOs will actually go so far as to actually have, reselling and introduction and finder's fee relationships with VARs, with service providers, and with vendors. And that's something you really can't have in if you're working for a large corporation as a chief information security officer because it's the conflict of interest and ethics. But when you're coming into a smaller organization where, maybe finding the absolute best product is not the number one thing, it's like the next product is the best product that you need. If you don't have an embarrassment of riches like cybersecurity folks do in large enterprise, getting a two-factor solution quickly is probably better than getting the best market-leading two-factor solution if you're a small business. Anyway, the virtual CISOs have a really, really good time and perspective on doing that. Now, another thing that benefits CISOs when they become a virtual CISO is that they can work with nonprofits. Now, there's really nothing preventing them from doing that if they're a virtual or a CISO for a major organization. But if you take on 10 clients as a virtual chief information security officer, and one of them's a nonprofit, two of them are a nonprofit, that's a really good way to give back to the community. And I've seen a lot of virtual CISOs not only do this tactic, but also take on one or two uh, um, people who are going to work with them to learn more about being a cybersecurity expert. Doing an internship type of program, doing an apprenticeship type of program for a nonprofit is a great way to get some reps and skills at doing a lot of the human interactions you have to do when you're deploying cybersecurity tools and policies and so on. Now, the last thing I'm going to say about being a virtual CISO is it can make you a little bit more standoffish, right? If you're going to do chief information security officer work, we all talk about how much there's a human side of things. You have to have interaction. You have to understand the business and that sort of thing. But the reality is, if you're doing that for an organization that's 10,000, 100,000 people strong, doing it for an organization that's 100 people, 50 people, it's not, 1,000 times simpler, but it's a lot less simpler, right? You don't need sort of the skill set of somebody who can do a 100,000 person organization. You don't need them 24/7. Right? You don't need them. You need them available, but you don't need them. You need them available, but not responsible for your cybersecurity, especially if you're not, putting out a huge team and that kind of stuff. So having a virtual CISO can really do this. So if you're watching this and you're thinking you're a red teamer now, you're a blue teamer, you're an incident responder, you're an audit and compliance, and someday you're going to be the chief information security officer of a major bank, you might be, but it's much more likely that the more than 300,000 small businesses here in the United States are going to need your services to have a strategy, to have an ability to advise those founders to be protected in cyberspace. So I hope you enjoy my thoughts here on being a virtual CISO and why that's going to impact our industry, probably for the better. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel, connect with me on LinkedIn, and go visit us at gula.tech. I hope everybody has a great day. Good luck becoming CISOs and virtual CISOs. I'm Ron Gula.